The winner is Art Carney. Thank you, Academy members, ladies and gentlemen, and Glenda. Art Carney's portrayal of Ed Norton earned him 6 Emmys. Rather than Al Pacino, he took home the Oscar. However, he remained silent when his well-known Honeymooners co-star passed away in 1996. Everyone in Hollywood showed their respect. Jackie Gleason's relatives sent flowers. Former television cast members sobbed. Art Carney remained silent. He was courteous and intelligent, she claimed in her memoirs. One day, she thought, they will speak again. They didn't. Nobody was aware of the extent of their abuse of one another. On November 4, 1918, he was born in Mount Vernon, New York. He was the youngest of 6 sons in an Irish Catholic family. His father was employed at a newspaper. However, Art was further transformed by the alcohol that permeated their home like water. 3 of his elder brothers were excessively intoxicated. His father drank, too. Art used to say, most of us boys didn't smoke, but we did drink. That was more than a thought, indeed. There was a message. He began drinking every day as a teenager, not just sometimes or with friends. As a child, he believed that drinking was commonplace. When, not if, he was going to tumble into it. Early on, he was good. His greatest ploy was to pretend to be Franklin D. Roosevelt. He sounded more than simply like him. He was himself. The voice, the tone, the halt. The president appeared to be speaking to those listening to the radio. Federal agents became engaged because it was so strong. They feared it would make the conflict more difficult. He was even making speeches that some foreign officials believed to be authentic. He became famous, but it was perilous. He then used that voice to sound like a variety of people on radio shows, including Churchill, Eisenhower, and Roosevelt. Due to the assistance of his older brother, Carney was already performing with Horace Heights Orchestra by the time he was 18. It had a very elegant sound. No, it wasn't. He shared a home with Fred Lowry, a blind whistler. In addition, he taught Art to substitute grapefruit juice and gin for coffee each morning. At first, it seemed liberating. Both rules and blame are absent. However, that freedom soon became a cage. He was unaware that he was addicted. He remembered one thing clearly. He was so inebriated during a live performance that he was unable to spell Tums, the sponsor's name. He slurred his words and spoke slowly. The sponsors were furious. He left the band before they could fire him at the age of 23. Then came the war. The 4th anniversary of his marriage was August 15, 1944. He served with the 28th Infantry Division in France as a machine shooter. Nearly, a German mortar went off. His right leg was shot through. He hadn't even fired his weapon. He then chuckled that he may not have wanted to and that he had never fired a gun. The person who was harmed, however, wasn't kidding. Compared to his right leg, his left leg was 3/4 inch longer. His gait was usually limping. 1 Purple Heart, 9 months of recovery, and an extremely wounded man. When he got home, no one could see the scars on his body or the prize he had received. He was obviously limping. The agony wasn't it. He continued to drink. He slept with drugs. Then he started using amphetamines. Even though the war had only ended 2 months ago, the effects would last a lifetime. Sometimes he lost it. The stress was too much for him. It wasn't known as PTSD at the time, but that's what it was. He had to leave The Odd Couple in 1965 due to a breakdown. It would take him nearly 30 years after the war to get clean. In the late 1940s, he was constantly on the radio. He collaborated with Maury Amsterdam, Milton Berle, and Fred Allen. Like the second banana, he was always there for the squad. For him, any voice or humor would do. But when he went behind the mic, he drank more than ever. Sometimes he mumbled his words. Occasionally, he would faint. They repeatedly employed him. His skill was far too rare. Instead of addressing his drinking, the producers found ways to get around it. After the war, he had a difficult time. Would a limping man perform well on television? He completed it. He had shoes designed specifically for him to keep his legs straight. But he didn't merely cover up his limp. He used it. He included that in his joke. He wasn't merely a weird dancer or walker. They were surviving. He put on a show of suffering. His admirers were unaware. They chuckled. But he never forgot the reality. Drinking made it worse. With the band from Horace Heights, he was already on edge. He was drinking now, and it was worse than before. His decision to quit the band at the age of 23 wasn't his own. He had no choice but to do it. Business suffered because of him. It was too late for him to solve his issue. Many more would follow. He performed a stand-up act. It didn't work. He was afraid of the stage, not because he wasn't hilarious. The crowd's expressions, the quiet, the tension. He felt uneasy about it. To relax, he drank. In order to become wiser, he then took some medications. After that, he needed to take more tablets just to fall asleep. He created a negative scenario. Repeat, drugs, shame, and terror. Being the center of attention himself was too much for the one who made radio stars shine. Even his personal life was plagued. After meeting in high school, the two fell in love. They got married in 1940. Paul, Brian, and Eileen were the names of their 3 children. However, substance usage led to the dissolution of the marriage. Because Art Carney didn't believe he belonged on television, he nearly missed his chance to make history. Carney was approached to appear in a sketch with Jackie Gleason on Cavalcade of Stars in 1951 by radio writers. Carney believed it was an error. He was already starting to gain notoriety. Carney didn't believe that famous person was aware of his identity. Fake humility did not exist. As Newton the waiter on the Maury Amsterdam show, he was subtly attracting all the attention. He still considered himself a small person, though. That mindset would influence all that followed. A man possessed abilities that could fill a whole room. All the while, though, he doubted himself. Everyone encountered Ed Norton in the movie The Honeymooners, which was based on that photo. He was recognizable by his pork pie hat, open vest, and white t-shirt. Behind the scenes, however, things weren't so simple. Carney was a perfectionist. He believed that every word, movement, and beat should be practiced. Gleason was searching for fresh concepts. He believed that too much practice would weaken the magic. Carney would arrive prepared to exercise. No, Gleason responded. For this reason, Carney created Norton's persona on his own. Because of an injury he had in combat, he even donned special shoes to conceal the fact that he walked with a limp. Carney was in charge of the timing and the goofy stunts. Pushing themselves through pain, stress, and eventually medication while practicing alone. When Art Carney was creating The Honeymooners, his life wasn't humorous. In front of 1,000 spectators at the Adelphi Theater in Manhattan, all 39 performances were captured on camera in real time. It was under enough pressure from that. However, Jackie Gleason complicated matters. He had a reputation for switching lines just before the performance began. He believed that the joy would be diminished if he practiced too much. As a result, when the actors initially took the stage, they frequently didn't know their lines. For Carney, it was misery. He had highly specific tastes. He had to prepare. Rather, he would receive new lines and staging instructions only before taking the stage in front of an actual audience. It was simply too much to bear. In order to survive, the actors developed covert visual cues. Gleason would pat his stomach when he forgot a line. Audrey Meadows would check the refrigerator whenever someone needed to use it. While everything appeared to be going smoothly on screen, Carney struggled to maintain composure behind the scenes. To cope, he took medicines and drank alcohol. Anything to help him relax. The show's demise in 1956 felt like a major setback. The show's ranking in the US dropped from number 2 to number 19. But it was a relief for Carney. Panic attacks prior to live tapings and last-minute rewrites will no longer occur. In fact, according to his supervisor, Gleason has plans for the summer that do not involve Carney. Carney is also pleased about that. He took full advantage of his newfound freedom. In 1957, he debuted on Broadway with The Rope Dancers. He was a damaged and inebriated father named James Hyland. It was nominated for 6 Tony Awards and played 189 times. Many people praised him. He was regarded as a virtuoso at combining charm, melancholy, and vulnerability. However, the fact that the section wasn't that difficult wasn't well known. Carney had already had too much to drink. He had been for a long time. Then followed his most well-known performance. Carney made his acting debut as Felix Unger in Neil Simon's The Odd Couple, 1965, starring Walter Matthau. It was a huge success. Matthau was a complete disaster. Carney was spot on. The program got very popular. The critics lost their minds. Tony Randall portrayed Felix on television in subsequent years. Carney's rendition was the first and best, he said. Carney had made Fitz more than a neat freak. He gave him a human side, making him weak, humorous, and complex. Even Jack Lemmon, who portrayed Felix in the film, struggled to escape Carney's shadow. His home life was in disarray, despite his excellent theatrical work. His 25-year marriage was deteriorating in 1965. He and Jean Myers had a lengthy history together and 3 children, but his drug usage prevented it from lasting. Carney started drinking while he was a teenager. He was also addicted to amphetamines and cannabis by the 1960s. He claimed that once, his former comic sidekick would have grapefruit juice and gin for breakfast. The situation worsened over time. After years of Jean's assistance, he began acting strangely and dangerously. She had had enough of everything. The marriage ended that same year, and then an even stranger thing happened. Carney appeared to be beginning to transform into Felix Unger. Away from the theater, he became compulsive. His currency stacking was the most disturbing aspect. Seeing him arrange coins in his changing room according to size, color, and worth was a wonderful sight. If even one was incorrect, he was not allowed to take the stage. Co-workers started to take notice. They claimed that because he was unable to stop setting things up, he missed clues and pushed back scenes. There was little distinction between the man and the individual. Felix was no longer merely a component. It appeared to be a cage. In October 1965, just 7 months into the Odd Couple's run, Carney reached his lowest point. He sought treatment at a psychiatric facility in Hartford after experiencing a complete mental and physical breakdown. He spent nearly 6 months there. He was honest about everything, including the breakdown, the drugs, and the drinking. My first marriage was ending, and I was not in good shape, he stated. On Broadway, Art Carney had already demonstrated his abilities. His portrayal of Felix Unger in The Odd Couple was excellent. He was hailed by critics and even by Tony Randall, who subsequently declared that Carney was the first and greatest Felix. However, when it came time to film the 1968 version, a horrible thing happened. Paramount chose Jack Lemmon instead. Making money at the box office was the stated goal. Carney, however, had a different idea. Because of his recent breakdown and his admission of drug addiction, he believed he was too hazardous, if not uninsurable, for a high-profile film. That thought never left him. In the end, the film earned more than $44.5 million, placing it as the year's 3rd most successful film. Not only was it disappointing to see things function without him there, but it also made him feel afraid. However, before Hollywood abandoned him, there were indications that things were becoming worse. Friends and co-workers started seeing strange things. Carney also acted like Felix Unger off stage when he was under stress. On the vanity table, his spare change would be arranged in a tidy stack, with the largest coins at the bottom and the tiniest at the top. It was insane, not just weird. His neighbors understood what that meant. He was falling once more. What was happening was visible to them. The more he acted like Felix, the closer he came to another breakdown. Over time, it was impossible to distinguish between Carney and Felix. Jackie Gleason made a phone call to Art Carney in 1966. Carney was miserable and doing drugs, so he was nowhere to be seen in public. But Gleason had always wanted Ed Norton back, and Carney had always been that guy. Against all odds, Carney returned. Additionally, the Jackie Gleason show's performance of the Honeymooners' return was magical. The fans came on. Norton's eccentric antics, awkward dancing, and devoted charisma had returned, and they were much more impressive than before. Nobody anticipated Carney's level of skill. He received his fourth prize in 1966. In 1967, he then experienced his fifth. Then in 1968, a sixth. He was hardly able to maintain his composure after 3 years and 3 Emmys. For the first time, music was incorporated into the presentation. As if nothing were wrong, he made everyone laugh while dancing and singing. Later on, though, he confided in someone about something frightening. Playing Ed Norton at the time saved his life in addition to his profession. When everything else was failing, the role gave him a reason to live. However, the dazzling lights of the concert were unable to conceal what was happening behind the scenes. Carney stopped using narcotics after his stay in the psychiatric institution, but booze continued to control him. The outcomes between 1966 and 1970 were terrible. His expression swiftly shifted. He appeared much older than that at 48. His face grew larger. He had trembling hands. His pace slowed. The harm could not be undone by making up. He needed more and more time to prepare for every scene. According to some estimates, Carney consumed around 1/5 of a bottle of whiskey each day. The wine and beer at dinner and in between takes are not included in that. Either way, his weight would change by 30 pounds in a matter of weeks. He occasionally lost all recollection of practicing. He was once discovered asleep in his changing room by his co-star Joyce Randolph. To maintain the show's reputation, the team learned how to deal with these issues in a tactful manner. Carney, however, was internally collapsing. After the 1969 season concluded, Carney did something that most performers in his position wouldn't even consider. He returned to Hartford and checked himself into the same brain hospital. He simply made a calculated, covert move because he knew he was in trouble. There was no incident, no arrest, no assistance. He had just won another Emmy, therefore he was still the best. But he drank more than before. This second visit lasted almost 4 months. He was working, he wasn't just relaxing. He was in therapy for a long period. He influenced how Alcoholics Anonymous operates now during his time in group meetings. He kept diaries. He treated his own thoughts with the same caution that he gave Norton's. He made a joke about his family's drinking past being a Irish curse. It wasn't thrilling. It was prearranged. He would eventually quit drinking permanently in 1974 while shooting Harry and Tonto thanks to the lessons he learned in that hospital. Although he didn't immediately become sober, it was undoubtedly beneficial. He never went back to that item, even as he recovered. The Honeymooners are this group. Gleason and Heather Meadows continued to communicate and attended a few gatherings, but Carney never showed up. Interviews, remarks, or references to the past are absent. "I don't remember the past," he remarked. He was done with that aspect of his life. It was even more difficult to convey the following thing. Lung cancer claimed Ava Meadows' life on February 3, 1996. Her age was 73. The entertainment industry immediately reacted. The tributes were numerous. Everyone raised their voices. Except for Art Carney, all of them. Not a single quote or sentence. Fans were taken aback. In his final interviews, even Gleason, who had passed away in 1987, had positive things to say about his co-stars. Carney, however, remained silent. Carney's acquaintances believed that there was more to it than what was stated. Some referred to it as frigid and cruel. In her most recent interview, Meadows expressed her hope that they would speak again in the future. She didn't think they were upset with one another. Perhaps it was true what she said about silence being louder than a battle. She never really explained why she believed Carney was upset with himself. She felt sorry for him because it was painful to think of the previous version of himself. It's possible that they were sorry and didn't mean to reject you with their silence. In 1975, Carney won an Oscar for Harry and Tonto, but remained even more obscure. He went away from Hollywood to live a tranquil life, quit drinking, and received treatment for antabuse. However, he never made another attempt at fame. After Firestarter and The Muppets Take Manhattan in 1984, he only appeared in minor roles in films. His final film, Last Action Hero, was released in 1993. In the film, he stated, "I'm out of here." Carney didn't attend events or retrospectives with other former celebrities, and it was the last time people saw him on screen. No interviews were conducted with him. He had no intention of taking a photo. He had no desire to become famous. He had no desire to be in a relationship. His first wife was named Jean. He remarried her in 1979 following a brief second marriage and a breakup. They shared a residence in Westbrook, Connecticut. He read, worked in the yard, and relished the calm. According to his buddies, he wasn't upset. At last he felt at ease. And finding that serenity had taken decades. Art Carney died in his sleep on November 9, 2003, 5 days after turning 85. A quiet conclusion to a life that had been chaotic, with no drama or secrets. He had abstained from booze and narcotics for nearly 3 decades. He continued to take antabuse to ensure he never returned. Like his life, his service was private. In Old Saybrook's Riverside Cemetery, he was buried beside Jean. In 2012, Jean would pass away. His grandson, Devin Carney, is currently serving in the Connecticut General Assembly after he ran for office. According to those close to Art Carney, he was fine with the Honeymooners before to their passing, although he never again gave them a public hug. The family name endured. The ache was gone, even if he might not have informed anyone. The demonic spirits were vanished. Only a single man remained. He had at last managed to be content with himself and go out in peace, as he had decided.